good. Maybe you'll keep them.
Yeah, maybe I will keep them. Maybe I'll keep them. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. This is Kathy Klotz-Guest. Welcome to the Yes and Brand Show. With me today is, you know her, you love her, because she is my partner in crime for business shenanigans, but she's now on Yes and Brand Show because she's serving in a pinch. She's a pinch hitter. You know her, you love her again. Kerry Gorgone. I mean, yay, Kerry!
You're so funny. Thank you for having me. This is fun. Now I get to see what you do on your other podcast.
On the other podcast. Well, you probably know Kerry as the very, very brilliant host of the Marketing Smarts podcast for marketing profs, where she interviews all kinds of luminary and luminatis and, ignoratis like me. And she has, and it's a great podcast. She asks these great questions. And one of the things that Kerry and I like to joke about is that she's so into putting the spotlight on the guest that, she'll ask a question and doesn't say much in between. And one of the things I love, and you have to check out our business shenanigans on Thursdays, our live stream, because Kerry's got lots of great opinions and lots to say, but she, in her Marketing Smarts podcast, she's more in the role of putting the spotlight on the guest, which I think, is fantastic. So now we're gonna put the spotlight on her because she deserves it.
An interview series is about the guest, though. I always feel like that. People would say you should interrupt more. I want to hear more from you. I'm like, that's great, but that's not the show.
It is about the guest, and I always feel like a great conversation is a two-way stream. It's a current, right? And so it's an ebb and flow. And I love seen a guest with personality. I love watching or listening to podcasts where the host has a great personality, and there's something about that chemistry. And if the chemistry is really great, it's really fun to listen to. So,
for sure. I mean, you have to say something.
You have to say something. You can't.
Have you ever seen the ones where they're like, talk, opinion, semi-fact? Don't you think, Kathy?
Yeah.
And you're like, why am I even here?
Or my favorite, and I totally get it, because sometimes you're trying to jumpstart a conversation and you have a guest, and this has happened, I'm sure, to you. I've had guests on Yes and Brand Show where they're very one sentence answers. And then you're like, oh, I thought there was going to be more. And so then you got to backfill, like you find yourself filling time. So then you're like, great question. That's interesting. Because you're trying to stall till you figure out the next question. And
oh no, I always go somewhere. It just may not be, if they don't give me anything good, it won't be somewhere they want to go. It's like
exactly
push them off to the direction that I think would be interesting. I would rather figure out what they think is interesting, because there's going to be really rich conversations to be had there. So if they're not giving me that, I'll just have to keep throwing it out until I land on something that works and then reel it in.
Exactly.
It's really hard.
Well, and the thing about it, and because you're a host, and we'll get into some of your journey in a second, it's like the beauty about being a host. And I think having a great guest is that it's always, I just need that one really good opener question, because in true improvisational form, for me, there's always something that will be said if it's an interesting guest, and I'll go, oh, that's interesting. Let's follow that thread. And so I'm very much I always giggle when people go, when they invite me on their podcast or their live stream, and they say, and I'm not going to send you any questions in advance. Is that okay? And I giggle and I go, it's okay. Shh, I'm an improviser. It's okay. It's all good. I got this. This is my jam. This is my sweet spot. No, we're good. I prefer it that way. Yeah.
I like to do a prep call now. I didn't used to, but now, only because I've discovered, and I had no idea there's this dark underbelly of podcast guest connections, but there's apparently people who will suggest and pitch guests to me that don't actually know the person or work for them. It's really weird. And then they reach out to the person if I'm like, sure, which doesn't happen a lot, but if it does, they reach out to the person. They're like, do you want to go on Marketing Smarts? And it's like this weird thing happening that I had no idea ever happened. So I only discovered that when I called a guest and we had our prep call, and I'm like, this is the 3 topics I was pitched on, which of them do you like the best? And they're like, yeah, none of those. None of them. It's like the person made that up too. It was so weird.
That's odd. I get a lot of the, and I'm sure you do too for Marketing Smarts. I get a lot of the Well, and the boilerplate stuff, and it's pretty obvious, pretty transparent. It's like they've never listened to Yes and Brand Show. They've never listened to my, marketing podcast, which I'm going to be relaunching. And they pitch me. They've never read any of my blog posts, and they start pitching. Yeah, and then they start pitching me on topics like, blockchain, which Kerry and I did a really fun podcast with Chris Brogan, but it was really more. In the vein of let's just have some fun and learn about it. It's not like
we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's like, and if you listen to it, you very quickly surmise that Kathy's not a Luddite, but Kathy's not a blockchain expert, and that's not what I cover. But it's so funny. It's like I'm getting pitched more and more. Hey, love your stuff, love you, love all around. Let's all hug at each other. And then it's like they pitch me some random topic that you're like, okay, I know you do not listen to anything that I've ever done.
But did it ever occur to you that if they pitch you, for one thing, if it's not an interview series and they pitch you a guest, you're like, okay. But even if it is, that they would ever consider pitching you someone that they don't know, that's like, seems like a great way to burn 2 relationships at once.
That's
because what if I don't want the person, or what if the person isn't good, or doesn't want to come on?
No, it's really weird.
Like, so weird. It ended up being a great conversation, by the way, but we talked about something completely else.
Yeah, that's weird. That's
so weird.
It is weird. It's almost like they're trying to establish themselves as a broker in between and go, look what I procured for you. And you're like, what? Did you really? That's weird. That's
and that same person now is Twitter messaging me to find out when the interview is going to go up. And I feel like saying, honey, I don't ever read these.
No, DMs are like, no, DMs are another layer in Dante's Inferno.
My DMs.
I do not read DMs for a reason. I do not. And then one time somebody, I got an offer to speak at a conference, but it was like too late because I never read DMs. And I'm like, why would you pitch me? Why would you ask me through a DM? I don't read DMs. I mean, DMs are evil. I don't read them. So, but who does that?
Well, they're not reliably checking your DMs. I mean, it seems, especially since obviously she's got my email because she's used it. So it's like,
I love it. What are you doing, girl? Well, let's jump in. Yes and Brand Show is really all about sort of the spirit of it comes from improvisation, obviously. Yes and it's really all about sort of yes anding opportunity in your life, and I think in business. And life is improv, business is improv. So how do we say yes to the things that make sense for us, and how do we have these keeping it human moments, as my brand is, where they're kind of pivotal. And how do you, I'm not going to say lean in because I'd have to slap myself, but how do we steer into, these moments that might be defining for us when we don't know what the path is? So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Let's start. Many of you probably, some of you will know, and some of you may not know. And let us know if you're here. Just say hello. Hey, Greg. Greg Martineau. So good to see you. I don't check DMs, so don't ever DM me. And if you're sending me the secret sauce to life, I won't check it. I won't know. But let us know you're here if you have questions for Kerry. Some of you will know. Some of you may not know. Kerry, you started out. You're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. You're a legal lawyer.
I'm licensed in 2 states, so
yeah,
neither one of which I live in right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I went to law school. I was first in my class, actually, and I took classes and internships and all this stuff, try and figure out like an area where I wanted to practice. And I still couldn't settle for like one area. So then I went to Secret Sauce's Ranch.
Yes, it's ranch. It is ranch, by the way.
Cool Ranch Doritos are disgusting. They leave like such a nasty flavor in your mouth.
Are you kidding me? That's all I ate when I was pregnant. And like my doctor was like, gestational diabetes, you might want to back away from those, sweetheart.
Oh my God.
He's like, yeah, but
so gross. But so after law school, I went into clerking, which is basically when you go work at a courthouse and you draft opinions for the judges, like you sit in on all the stuff. And I went to the New Hampshire trial court because I wanted to see like everything. and all different kinds of cases and stuff. I did that for 2 years, like really super loved it, but had student loans to pay. So then I joined a big firm in litigation for the kind of the same reason. Like in litigation, that's just trial law. You get to have all kinds of cases. So we're looking at criminal, domestic, tax, copyright, trademark, like more of the entertainment law kind of stuff. Yeah. So I got to see kind of everything. But at the same time, I was thinking I wanted kids and stuff. And it was very, very difficult to balance everything. I mean, part of the reason I went to work in New Hampshire and not Boston was because of the lifestyle. I thought it would be better. Yeah. And it almost doesn't matter because it's not about total number of hours. It's about being available to your kids if they need you, and dropping everything for them when you have clients that want the same thing. Like if they have something, it's the most important thing. And I totally get that. But if you want to be the one that picks up your kid at school when they're sick, it's incompatible with that. So it's not like there's nobody else who could do it, but I wanted to do it. So, and my dad was sick. My dad was dying at the time, had cancer. Like one of those things that takes like 5 years, to happen. So all things considered, I thought I would try a smaller firm, kind of changed to focusing on real estate, probate. I love people. So I was talking to people all the time doing real estate closings, but I kept missing the creative stuff I used to do. Yeah. Like before I ever went to law school, I was in marketing. And so I was like, oh, you guys need a website. Like, this website really sucks. Or I would do videos they would have an event and I would do the video for it and edit it and stuff. And I was like, I missed the creative work. That's what kind of fed my spirit. So I was practicing law, but I was missing the richer sort of soul feeding creative work that I was doing before. So I ended up getting into teaching at a college and then doing like marketing stuff in their publications, like their student magazine and stuff. It's like, I don't know what I was doing, but I was teaching marketing law, everything, antitrust, copyright, trademark, all that stuff, and business law. And so I was doing that for a while. And then I moved from Massachusetts to Florida and started teaching intellectual property for entertainment, like kids that were going to get into the entertainment business. So copyright and trademark again, licensing and all that. And eventually found my way somehow backwardsly back into marketing. I was teaching new media marketing. Like they needed someone who understood the legal aspects because there's so much like law breaking that just happened with media and stuff. They call it new media. It's like everything now. And so I'd been a podcaster from a long way back. And that's actually how the director of that program knew me and was like, oh, you should. She's like, podcasts are new media. And I'm like, podcasts are like 10 years ago. But she said, oh, they're new media, so you should come do this thing. So I did that. And from there, it was like, that's when I started going to marketing industry events and collaborating with marketing profs and covering things for them. And that's kind of what got the ball rolling, I think, in that space.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And hey, Adrienne, yes, we are just making it up as we go along.
It sounds really weird. Looks like I made up my career trajectory.
But I think we all do, don't you think? I mean, actually, I love hearing that because so I totally get that. I think sometimes it's a matter of preparation and we know who we are. We discover more of who we are and what our loves and likes are and our proclivities in the work world. And then what the average person now changes career how many times? So what you actually go to school for, unless you're going to be a doctor or maybe a lawyer, in your case, no, but there's very few things that are so rigid. And, even doctors and lawyers find themselves doing journalism or, marketing or something else other than what they train for. I think that's most of us.
Well, there's a clear path you could take. I mean, that's probably the difference. Like if you graduate with a degree in business communication, there's like 170 things you could do with that. Yeah. But if you get a law degree, it's like there is one traditional path you could very easily take.
Right.
Which I was on. And I was like, no.
You were on that path. It's so interesting too, because maybe, and I identify because when I first met you, I'm like, she doesn't strike me as like a lawyer at all. And I don't mean to put down lawyers. I almost became one. In fact, I did one semester of law school. And then I was like,
Hashtag fact.
Hashtag fact. One semester of law school. And then my professor's like, I had lunch with the professor and he was so kind. And he just said, you're just so creative and you're so and the law is so technical and black and white. And that is not you. So he's like, this might not be for you. You're, cognitively, yes, but creatively, are you going to be happy? And I was like, I don't think so. And yeah, no, I totally get that. But when I first met you, I was like, oh my, she's so great. And then I found out later after the fact that you were a lawyer. And I was like, that's interesting. Because it's funny, sort of the stereotypes we have of lawyers, because we think of lawyers as being black and white, technicalities, the letter of the law, and you're such a colorful personality. And I was like, oh my gosh, this seems like like she's found her niche,
There's a lot of persuasion to it.
Yeah.
Which I always enjoyed. It's like playing chess when the other person knows how to play too. And that was always really fun. So you're trying to get to a specific objective. Everybody knows the rules and what's on the table, and you have to make your way to getting the other person, the judge in the middle, to see things your way. So I always really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily, I had to really believe in the outcome. And, that's not possible when you're at a big firm. It's like, never tell the client that they can't do what they want to do. So can I win that case? Sure. But that's not going to be intellectually fulfilling for me. I really want to feel like I'm finding the right answer, Yeah. So that was tough. I mean, there's creativity, but it's creativity like within the bounds of the law. You can't lie and stuff. Sure. But there are footnotes for a reason, but those inconvenient facts.
Well, and you just said it. It's really fascinating to me, because I think of the law as being the ultimate really in storytelling, because it really is. I mean, you think about what a trial is each side is telling a story based on the same facts. So it's all interpretation. And it's really whoever tells the most salient, compelling story that matches what the jury believes the facts are, if it goes to a jury trial, wins. And that really is the ultimate in storytelling. So I can see how the influence and persuasion and storytelling ability are just things that come to the table for lawyers. It makes total sense to me. And I can see that because you're a storyteller. You've got that natural inclination. So I can see the creativity part within the bounds, the confines of what's legally defined. And so, yeah.
It wasn't the work for me. It was the practice that really led me to do something different, like to move into education and training, where my personality, the same kinds of things that I brought to law, I could use to different effect.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Did you have any, so what were some of your along the way? Cause I've gotten to know Kerry, everybody, over the last year, and she just cracks me up. She's hilarious. She's talented. She knows marketing. She's just fun. And it's like, were there moments along your journey, sort of moving from being a lawyer and recognizing where you really wanted to be, that you just had these aha, like insight moments? You're like, what the hell am I doing here? Or, oh, of course, this explains why I should be somewhere else.
Oh boy. Well,
the inner bubble's like, what am I doing here?
It's a little scary, actually. It's like, so you're number one in your law school class, but you don't want to practice law. So you spend a lot of time trying to convince yourself that you're wrong, like that you should be happy doing what traditionally lawyers do, because you've worked so hard to achieve. Well, I know I'm talking about myself like you, but I mean,
third person. Kerry wasn't happy.
Kerry wasn't happy. Kerry didn't think that was cool. No, I had this other voice in my head telling me, like, so in that sense, it was somebody else telling me, this is what you signed up for. This is what you worked for. This is what you should do. But then I was thinking to myself, there's got to be another way. I mean, it is a wide world. There is no way that there's only one possible path that I could take. So thinking about all those things, I had to find the courage to just leap. Yeah. And when I left law and went into education, people were like, they didn't understand why. And because my credentials and stuff, as impressive as they were in law, like they didn't necessarily carry over to the new jobs that I would be doing that were more creative. Like one of the guys at the college I ended up working at said, so why would you take a job with so much less prestige and pay? And I said, well, I've only been happy at law jobs that don't pay anything. My favorite law job was clerking. That doesn't pay you anything. So it's like prestige, So I got that job. I mean, it was fine. But I just had to find the courage to listen to that whispering in my own heart, I guess, and not the louder voice telling me to do what was expected.
That's such a great, I love hearing that. And I think hopefully that inspires people, because I think that's such a big thing that a lot of us kind of feel. And I love, Adrian, your comment. Yeah, the detours are more interesting, aren't they? They really are. Well, and I think a lot of people out there probably will relate to this story. I mean, I know I do. I remember so many times my head would say one thing and then my heart would say something else. And I was like, do I listen to my head? I mean, I have a lot of degrees. So do I listen to that part, or do I listen to my heart? And do I listen to the people around me that are all like, are you crazy? You're going to walk away from a 6-figure, your salary. You're like, senior VP track. You want to walk away and do what? You want this comedy thing that you prepared for? You want to go do that? And how did you know, or was there a moment you knew that the voice in your heart was really the right one? How did you rule out all that noise? Because I think that's what is hard.
I knew it was the right one all along. That's I just pushed it away for a while.
Yeah.
And when did I realize I was really going to do it? I realized I was going to leave the law entirely and go into teaching when my dad was really sick, and he was having a series of strokes and stuff. And I had to put all my law stuff together, like for the guy who was going to cover for me and stuff. And then he was still giving me kind of a hard time about leaving. And I was like, there is nothing in the world that's more important than balance to me right now. So that was one moment where I was like, I got to do something else. That was just like on a personal balance type level. But creatively, I had, you're going to laugh, but I had this moment where at the large law firm, people would come in and, they had their different problems. I got to the point where in a single week, every single person who came in to talk about their problem had a job that I thought would be more fun than mine. We had some hairdressers. We had somebody from a production company. We had, trying to think what the other people were. But every single person, I was like, that sounds like fun. I could do that. I think that sounds like a pretty interesting job. And I thought, if I'm like job shopping in my head, probably really start job shopping.
But what a great story though, because I think we've all done that. We're like, well, oh my God, that sounds amazing. I would be really good at naming colors for nail polish. Oh my God, seafoam green. Oh my God, lavender muffin. Oh my God, that could also be my stripper name if I ever go down that path. Oh my God, it's like when you start shopping, like job shopping in your head. I love that, because I think if you're spending a lot of your waking moments wanting to be somewhere else, I think that's really a good wake up call, I think, for any of us. But I think you said something really interesting, because which I know I relate, and I'm sure others will too. It's, you go and you get this education, you spend a lot of time and money, and you graduate top of your class, you go, you make that investment, and at some point you realize that's not where you want to be. And some part of you goes, oh my gosh, wow, I spent all this time and money. And there's that idea of sunk costs that we always talk about in business. And I think which keeps a lot of people psychologically, I think, tied to that same path, because they're like, well, I spent all this time and money going to law school or getting my MBA, might as well stick, And I think at some point you're like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. But it is interesting how people around you can sometimes be enablers that are like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? And so you have to.
They make people uncomfortable when they see somebody who's willing to walk away from that investment, make the hard choice. Yeah. It can make some people uncomfortable because they've settled. Yeah. And I'm not judging. I mean, that's the choice they made. But I think that a lot of stuff comes from that. I read Fight Club, the book. Did you read?
Oh, yes.
And there's this one scene in it where I don't want to spoil Fight Club for people, right? But the protagonist goes up to this kid, threatens him with a gun, tells him basically he's like 20-something kid, says he's going to shoot him, and asks him what he wanted to do with his life. He's at some crap job. And the kid said he wanted to be a veterinarian. He's like, seriously, you wanted to be a veterinarian, instead you're doing some shit job and now you're going to die. And he said, I'm going to let you live. The paraphrasing, basically, he's like, I'm not going to shoot you in the face, but I'm going to check on you in 3 months. And if you're not in vet school, I'm totally going to shoot you in the face. And that's it. Like the kid goes and becomes a veterinarian and pursues his life dream. And I was thinking, if somebody had a gun to my head right now, would I say I wanted to be a lawyer? No. I don't know if I would know what I did want to say, but I mean, it wasn't that. So that was kind of a moment for me.
Yeah.
Examine what I was doing altogether and think, if this really is it, you know, if I had to pick something, would this be it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, what a great, I mean, that it really comes down to that though. I mean, when you think about the finite amount of time that you have, and not to be a downer, but like, let's face it, you know, I mean, it doesn't get more stark than that, you know, and it's like, where do you want to spend your time and where were you meant to be? And, you know, Adrian says, yeah, Jonathan Shapiro wrote, Lawyers, Liars, and the Art of Storytelling. You know, I have not read that book, but a lot of my lawyer friends have recommended that to me. And you know what? I have a friend named John he's a trial attorney, and he is one of the most amazing storytellers I know. And he likes to adopt this Irish character that he does. And he's a fantastically colorful storyteller. And what a great book. I haven't read it yet, but you're like about the fourth or fifth person that's recommended it to me. So I think I might.
That'd be a nice gift for my birthday, Kathy. My birthday's not until January.
Okay.
You can save up.
Okay, I'm gonna save up, and I'm gonna buy you. I'm gonna buy you that book. Well, you know, I love hearing your story. It's really, because I think so many of us do get in those quandaries of like, gosh, I really have trained for this, and how do I know? And people around you, they're uncomfortable with you recognizing it. Maybe it stirs up something in themselves to want to. Are you sure you want to do the right thing? I mean, I have people go, "Are you sure? You could be senior VP. Are you sure you want to go do this? Do you want to leave and do what?" And people, you know, especially when you come from like these crazy worlds of like, you know, Stanford and some of the, you know, tech and where I came from, people looked at me funny. Like, well, they always look at me funny because I'm me.
Well, lawyers, if you don't want to practice, they'll treat you like you are a leper or something.
Yes.
Because all these other aspirational lawyers want is to get to where you are. And when you reject it, it's almost like an affront to them.
It is. Well, you check back on us, Adrian, in 3 months, but it's so true because I think it makes people uncomfortable. Maybe there's an inkling in a lot of people around you who maybe also have that seed of, well, maybe this isn't for me, but it causes them to have this disconnect and this cognitive dissonance, and maybe seeing you have the courage to question it is like weird. But it's funny because I can't tell you, a lot of my friends were supportive, but when I left corporate America to start my own thing, I mean, people around me were like, "Are you crazy? You're walking away from this path and everything you've done and the fact that you've worked hard." And it was like, but I'm not in love with it. In fact, I'm not even in like with it. I'm a maybe, you know what I mean? I'm not even in like with it anymore.
Mm-hmm. If that guns to your head, that's like the last thing you're saying, because I want to be senior VP of mergers and acquisitions.
I mean, me with my comedy background. Yes, I'm a Stanford nerd. I was a senior director of marketing, but my God, if ever there was a person who felt like a fish out of water trying to navigate those things. And it was funny because we question our own voice sometimes. I can remember, I don't know if you ever, it sounds like you were more clear than I was, because sometimes I would question my own voice. I'd be like, you know, I'd look around and I'd be like, okay, I have all the credentials and the check boxes, but my heart was never in it. And then I had to navigate all the being a woman in tech, and then having teams of people that some of whom didn't like working for a woman, and then having to deal with all of that, and then waking up one day and all of a sudden you've got these titles and you've got a salary and you've got a Silicon Valley mortgage, and you're like, how did I get here? Because this sucks. And you're like, I don't know how to do this anymore.
There's a lot of sexism in every profession too. Yeah. I mean, now, there just is, but in trial litigation, that constantly comes up. I mean,
how'd you deal with that? I would love to know, because you're a strong woman.
Oh, I became a massive bitch is how I deal with it. I was like, nope. Like I'm from Boston, so I'm already kind of, I don't know what the right word is. It's not brassy, it's not exactly the right word.
Sassy?
But I don't have a problem with confrontation. Yeah. I don't actively seek it out, but I don't have a problem with it. So I'm like, if you're gonna start something, you better be ready to finish it.
Yeah.
So that worked for me in that context. I did learn a little more about diplomacy in law school, you know, that helped me out. But So there was one guy, he was just completely psychotic, and he would constantly say inappropriate shit to me. And so finally he came up to talk to me, and I said, we are not having this conversation until I get a transcriptionist. Like, stay here. I'm gonna go get like a court reporter to come over. And then, totally different tone, totally different attitude, everything changes. But anytime they want it. So I was like, you lost the privilege to have any kind of off the record conversation when you started your shit. So
that's right.
That's what's happening. But I had this personal brand at the time, and I didn't even think of it that way, but it was like really confident and really good writer. I won. I mean, I would win like those. I would write the arguments that would win. And then I walked away from all that too. So it's like I'd built up all this brand equity really in law, and then completely took a different tack and had to start all over again, convincing people that I could do the job that I just took, which in fairness, I mean, I had never had that job before. So I could see why they thought that, but I did it, and so it's more like saying yes and believing I can do it.
Yeah.
Even if nobody else does. And I really started paying attention to my jealousy too. Do you ever get jealous? You see somebody do something. I felt jealous the first time somebody else had a podcast, because I was like, why did they get to have a podcast?
Oh, wow.
And I did. And I was like, like, who are they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that wasn't even a thing, when we were growing up. There was like the radio, and it was all official, and there were gatekeepers, and there was like a path to getting there. So somebody else being a podcaster, at first I was jealous, and I was like, well, who gives them the mic? And then I was like, well, no one's stopping me either. So that's when I first thought about podcasting.
Oh, wow.
Jealousy, like acknowledging what it was.
Yeah. Hey, Timothy Snow says he's from Providence, and that's all he's got. Well,
Providence. I got lost in Providence once.
Providence.
The judge had to send someone out to find me. I got lost. I got good and lost before Google Maps.
Oh man.
Okay. I mean,
that's all right. Yeah. I love that you're so candid about that, the jealousy factor, because I think that's such an important thing. I think we're taught a lot of times, don't be jealous and don't be angry. But I actually think that anger and jealousy are a barometer. They're healthy if we recognize that something in our life is off. I think jealousy and anger surface because they're trying to tell you, you shouldn't be doing this. And I think actually, if you listen to jealousy and anger, I mean, I always joke, that anger is like, it's like visiting your in-laws. You got to make the trip once in a while, but you sure as hell don't want to live there. So
I make the trip daily. I'm really devoted.
You're hardcore. Like you got to get angry, because if it's creative fuel for you to make a change and recognize that something is off in your life, then anger actually has a purpose. So I don't think anger or jealousy are bad inherently. And I can remember times feeling jealous where I saw friends leaving. I got my MBA, I got my master's in communication. I was running marketing communications and all that stuff. And I saw friends of mine that I went to graduate school with, and they were leaving and having fulfilling lives. And part of me was getting jealous. And I was like, man. But then I recognized that the jealousy was there, it was there kind of telling me, why am I jealous? What is up with that? Then I realized, well, shit, it's because I don't belong where I'm at, and I'm seeing them do something I want to do.
Right.
So rather than,
something's gone sideways with you.
I'm the one who's like Paul Giamatti. I mean, I'm not drinking other people's like spit in the but I'm close, because I'm hurting. And then I realized, you know what? That's a mirror. The jealousy is a mirror that you have to look in.
It's not ladylike. It's not ladylike.
We're not
to be
supposed
jealous.
To, no, we're taught, as women especially, I mean, we're all taught to avoid anger, but I think women especially are taught, don't be jealous, don't be petty, don't be angry. But I got to tell you that the best thing I ever did was get angry and jealous. And then I took a good hard look in the mirror and I went, why am I jealous that they're doing something else? And I realized it was because they were doing something that I didn't have the guts to do. And then I went, well, crap, I only have myself to blame. So I think the jealousy and the anger, even though women are told don't do it, girls, ladies, get angry. If it helps you hone in on what you need.
And jealous. If you're feeling jealous of somebody else, instead of, thinking, who is she to do this or that, think, what if I could do that?
Yeah, I agree.
That's what brought me to podcasting. It's like, well, what if I could do that? Instead of thinking, well, how come he gets to do that or she gets to do that? I thought, what if I could do that? And then it got me thinking, what do I need to be able to do that? And when I had the chance to take over the Marketing Profs podcast, it was like 70 episodes in. Man, I didn't even hesitate. I was like, hell yeah. I'd never edited audio before. I had never I podcasted, but I didn't edit. That's like a whole different thing. And I'm like, totally, I can do this. I taught myself to edit and shit. Like, so
you got this. That's awesome.
I wanted it too much to say no.
God, I love that. That itself is such a powerful lesson. I think we all learned, get jealous enough to say to yourself, what are they doing? And can I do that too? And that's such a big thing. If you're willing to point that jealousy back at yourself and look at that and go, all right, rather than get jealous, then how do I do what they're doing? What can I learn from that? And I think that's so powerful, admit it.
Tamp it down. Those feelings aren't nice. And so a lot of our first instinct is to be like, I should just be happy with what I have. Not necessarily. I'm not saying gratitude's a bad thing. Gratitude's a great thing, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay in your current situation forever and feel grateful. It's okay to want something more, something different.
Totally. And it's better than repressing it or thinking you have to be ladylike and, and suck it up, or be like Ronnie Jackson and be a day drinker. None of those are healthy.
Yeah, you don't know what's in my Boston mug.
You don't know what's in here. Muzzle. But day drinking is not an occupation. Might be fun for a while, but and I love your honesty about that. I think we don't admit that enough. We don't admit to ourselves that we get jealous or angry, and why do we do that? And that is fuel for me, or you, or anybody, I think, to change, the course of their life. And I love that you said that you didn't compass. Yes, God, I love it. So I think we can all agree, bitches, get angry.
Cheers.
Get angry. No, I love that. I think that's so honest and so real. And I can totally relate. But you also said something really interesting, which is you believed enough you wanted it so much that you believed, was not an option. So you believed, you yes-anded that, and you kind of steered into that.
It was scary. Anytime you get an opportunity that's outside your kind of comfort zone, it's going to be scary, and you'll have that bigger voice, the louder voice saying, you can't do that. You don't know how to do that. But there's that whisper that's like, you really want this. You really want this. You really want this. And I wanted it too much to say no. So I figured I can always learn how to edit. I can always learn.
Yeah.
And I did,
You totally did. You rocked it.
Yeah. And that's perfect every time. I'm not going to lie. There are some rocky ones.
Well, hey, you know what? You got to have a grace period while you're growing into that yes. While you're leaning into the yes, you have to give yourself some patience, because if those of you listening, if you listen to Kerry, on Marketing Smart, she's fantastic. But you also have to give yourself a grace period when you're transitioning and you are steering into that yes. I think you have to be patient with yourself, because you may have the desire and you really do have the talent, but you have to learn maybe the mechanics, like the mechanics of podcasting or the mechanics of whatever to make so don't get discouraged with that. And I think that's being patient with yourself is such an important thing, because if you hadn't done this, if you hadn't made the transition, we wouldn't have your voice out there in the world. So ultimately we won. You won, we won, right? That's such a score.
Well, we'll see where it all ends up. My supervillain plan is still in development.
It's still in development. No, and I love that. I sometimes, I've always been a jump in and then figure it out later. That's always been my mentality. And I think that's a healthy way of doing it. And sometimes I question myself, but I'll be honest, if I had to learn all the perfect techniques of podcasting or live streaming before I jumped in, it would have dissuaded me from getting in there and breaking stuff and figuring it out. And I wouldn't have done it. And so I think the improviser in me is like, am I ready? Hell no. Should I still do it? Hell yes.
I just think things. I'm one of those people that does, though. Not every corporation super loves it. By the way, that you're like, we should do that. Yeah, boom, that is done. And then they're like, whoa, wait a second. We didn't have our 12 hours of committee meetings about it or whatever. I would literally publish pages on the website and just be like, that's done. And then they change their mind about something and I'd go change it. But I was like, hey, there's really not much you can't fix later.
Yeah.
Very few decisions are really irreversible. So I'm just like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When the risk is
with everything else too, I'd rather jump and take the risk than not and wish that I had.
Yeah. Regret's a bitch. Oh boy. I don't want to deal with that. That's a big one, you know, and you know, you mentioned something really interesting, which is sort of the whispers, like the whispers and stuff. And so, how did you, like, you know, how did you kind of calm the voices, the inner critic because everybody has the inner critic. And I think, you know, everybody has to kind of hone in on that channel and that frequency and start to realize and recognize when it's kind of raising its ugly head. And how did you get control of it? How did you recognize it and get control of it? Because, you know, we all have the voices, the whispers that are like, you are meant to do something. But then we have the voice in our head that's like, shut up.
Do you ever read Stephen King books?
Yeah, I do.
Like in all the Stephen King books, he's got, you know, that you basically hearing the character's inner monologue through what he says. And then there's like parentheticals. And the parentheticals are stuff that the person's thinking, but they don't realize that they're thinking that. And so I started listening for the parentheticals. Like once I saw that mechanism in his writing, I started looking for the parentheticals in my own thinking. And that's when I realized the parenthetical stuff in his books is the most important stuff most of the time. Like the insights that change the entire course of the story are buried in those parentheticals. And that's when I started listening for my own and realizing that it was a vastly different and more supportive voice than the predominant voices, you know, of critics and whatever, critics, parents, some dick professor that didn't think you could do anything, whatever, you know, they're all there.
Yeah.
So to listen for the parenthetical, it was something I actually made an effort to do it.
Listen to the parenthetical. God, I like that. I think that's really cool. I think it's really cool.
There, I promise you. I wouldn't have thought it was, but once I saw it written out, I thought there are things that you kind of whisper to yourself and they happen so fast you don't realize it. But they're so powerful when you finally slow down to listen.
No, my gosh, I love that. No, it's so true. I always come back to like you know, you have the inner critic, but you also have the voice inside you, or that whispers, to your point, that always moves you in the direction you're meant to go. Like I can't even tell you why we're born with certain dreams, but we are, and we're born with certain dreams. And it was always in my head. It was like, well, you're good at this and you're funny. And like people love your jokes and they like, and it's easy for you. Why is it so easy? And then you second guess yourself sometimes and go, well, if it's easy, why isn't everybody doing it? And then the voice goes, well, because that's your wiring.
Not easy for them.
It's not easy for them. And that's what you were meant to do. And so it's funny. And if you can hone in on the things, the little whispers that are telling you to move in that direction, you know, and I think the voices in your head that are the kindest are the ones you should listen to versus the inner critic, because the inner critic is kind of mean and bitchy and not very nice sometimes. And so I think the voice
is the worst possible outcome.
Oh, like always. And I think the inner voice that's gentle and kind is the one that we need to spend more time listening to, the patient one that's like, no, you were meant for this. You were meant for this.
Yeah, you would never tell your friend if your friend said, you know what, I really want to be an interviewer. That's what I want to do. You'd never be like, you're an idiot. Like you're a lawyer. Why would you ever want to do that? You make so much less money. You're going to lose all your, you know, all your cool friends. Like you'll be driving a shitty car. You'd never say that to your friend. You would say, that's awesome. Like, how are you going to do that? Yeah. You would want to know more. So I don't know why we talk to ourselves so much worse than we talk to everybody else. But
isn't that the truth? That is so, no, it's so true. It's like, you know, it's so true. You know, if you figure out that inner critic and you imagine it as a person sitting across from you, having lunch with you, and would you sit there at lunch and let them talk to you like that? You would get up and leave. You'd be like, bye.
Oh, I would.
You know, you would not put up with that. So it's amazing the stuff that we put up with from our own inner critic. And
but it all starts with, you have to re-equalize it so that the whisper gets louder and the criticism gets quieter, you know? Yeah. And then act on it. I also got really good at sitting with guilt. Like I'm Catholic. And so there's like a shit ton of guilt involved in everything. And so there's a lot of guilt, like, oh, all your family, you know, helped you through law school or like, you know, borrowed money or whatever. Like there's all that too. And there's a lot of guilt. And I just got really comfortable sitting with the guilt basically and was like, well, that's as, if I feel that way, that's the way it is, but I'm going to do this anyway. I'm just going to do it.
That's so funny.
Do it.
Totally get it.
I'm scared. I feel guilty. I'm just going to do it anyway.
And how did you deal with the fear? Was there any kind of mechanism that you use that worked for you to kind of
pull the trigger? I would just do it. I would just do it. I mean, as far as trying to talk myself into not being afraid, that's impossible. Yeah. I'm going to feel afraid. I didn't lie to myself and say, no, 100% it's going to be all right. But I'd be like, well, it's as likely that it's going to be all right as that it isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm going to, if I'm placing bets, I just learned to always place bets on myself instead of everybody else who isn't me that thinks they know better than I do. Like, you just have to change your valuation of yourself and your own capabilities. Mm-hmm. Bet on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. It's so true. It's like, I don't know why we listen to other people's voices and give them more credit than we do our own voice. Because we know ourselves, we're in our head 24/7, which if you only knew half the crap in here, like, trust me, like, oh God, right? Because trust me. And so it's like, but we know ourselves best. And it's interesting how we always listen to other people's voices and somehow give it more weight. And I think it's time to really give your inner whispers, a lot more weight and credence, because they're there. You're in your head. You know what you know, and you're intimately connected with yourself more than anybody else from the outside is going to know what's really in your heart and in your soul and what you really want. So, it's important to sort of make sure that you're really inner directed, which is hard. I'm Catholic too. It's like all the guilt of what I should do and shouldn't do. And, and the people around me that were like, really? You want to leave and do what? Are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, thanks for your support.
I know, right? They want to keep you in your box.
Keep you in your box.
It's uncomfortable for them to think about the ways that maybe they didn't pursue what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they settled for something less for whatever reason, which is totally their choice. But they want you to make the same choice so they don't have to continue to feel bad about theirs.
Well, and that's
I'm no psychologist, by the way. I have no idea. I'm just like,
it makes sense. No, it makes sense. Because don't you notice, like, sometimes when you make that shift, people around you change. And I think that one of the things about watching a person become more aligned and in tune with who they really are is you'll notice, I think it's like spiritual physics. I'm getting all deep in shit today. It's like, Ronnie. No, I'm kidding. But exactly. I think what happens is when you start to change and really go, it just causes sort of a ripple effect around you emotionally. And I think there are people that are supportive, and then there are the people that don't like the change, and it sort of sorts itself out. Sometimes not always in the best way. I've certainly lost friends that maybe weren't supportive of my journey, and it's heartbreaking. It really is. But what I think ends up happening is the people that will support you, you see who they are. They step up, and so you end up. It's actually kind of a good thing in a way, because the people who aren't going to support you will self-select out, and that's fine. Yeah. And there's no nice way to say it. Nobody wants to lose friends, but if they were your friends, they'd be there to support you.
You're putting out different energy, not like to get metaphysical or whatever, but the way you interact with people is different. When you start thinking about your own needs and what you really want in a way that's like, I could do this, how can I do this? It changes the way you interact with people and the conversations that you have. Like when I discovered that I loved interviewing, I was teaching and I was having guests come in and talk to our whole program. We would get like all the marketing students together and do this thing. And I really loved it. I loved interviewing the guest. And I told Anne Hanley and I were friends at the time. And I just mentioned how much I loved it. And it was because I was thinking I might want to do that. And I was willing to acknowledge it, that it even came out in the conversation. And now I do it. I do it all the time, right? 300 something interviews and counting. So, but it all started with me acknowledging that that's what I wanted to do. There's also some guy like mowing right outside. I don't know if you can hear it. I
can hear it a little bit. And I was like, ooh, what is that? What is that?
I'm like, what the?
I was gonna say, wow, she's got this sonorous, like spiritual energy. Like, that's weird.
Yeah, really. No, but I mean, that's not a conversation I would have had if I was telling myself every day, don't, stop being stupid.
Yeah.
Do your own regular stuff.
Totally. No, I think the more feelers you put out in the world too, and let people know that that's what you want to shift into and that's where you want to go, I think people show up to support you. You just have to vocalize it. Don't be afraid to vocalize it. And I think that's such an important thing. Totally.
It just changes everything. Like the choices that you make, the opportunities you pursue, the ones you say no to, it all starts with just acknowledging what it is you really want, whether you discover it through jealousy or whatever, but it doesn't even matter how you discover it. Once you know, it affects everything else.
It almost is an obsession. It's sort of your white whale. And I think, it is. I'm going to pull a little literary sort of thing, don't be Captain Ahab and let it get away. That's the thing you've got to do. Cause you know what I mean? You've got to sort of try to make that happen. And once you sort of know the direction you want to go in, I think that's such an important thing. Is there anything, you said some very sage things today, Kerry. Oh my gosh. Deep moments, it's like deep thoughts like by Jack Handy, except for by Kerry Gorgone. Deep thoughts. Coffee time. I feel so like one of those, like,
Right?
Exactly.
Like we're on The View or something.
We're on The View and we're like having these like seriously, I know we're just having these like super deep, like spiritual, like revelation in moments. Like, oh my God. It's, so is there anything, I love your candor. I just love it. Is there any like tips or like, one or two little nuggets you'd leave with people that are maybe making the shift and how they can kind of maybe yes and or steer into these moments?
Yeah, you can start by having a condo where they don't do yard work right outside your house. That'd be my first tip for doing any kind of broadcasting work.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's the life skill. No, I just say like shift your thinking, bet on yourself instead of always against yourself, because we're always counterbalancing the weights that we're betting against ourselves. And it's crazy. So once you start doing that, you pick out the right opportunities, you're going to have to invest in yourself. I mean, it takes courage, but it's always worth doing it. Like I love interviewing people. Now I get to do it all the time. And it's paid off in ways I couldn't have imagined. I have this huge network of people and I'm connecting them for their benefit too. And then they come to when we need speakers or when we need something. Like I know people that I never would have talked to probably if I weren't in the interview business. So it's something that's paid off in ways that I hadn't foreseen. And if you pursue what it is you really want, it will change everything in your life for the better in ways you can't imagine now, in ways that kind of negative voice in your head has no idea about.
Yeah.
So you just have to do it.
You just got to do it. Very, very inspiring. Inspiring, Kerry.
People say that all the time.
Oh my God, I know. Totally. So inspiring. Well, you have to, everybody, you must check out Marketing Smarts, because I think Kerry does a great job with guests. But you got to check out our Business Shenanigans live stream, which we'll be back to next Thursday. I was traveling, got sick, and Kerry's very patient. But we have different people. I know.
But I just don't want you to get sicker and die.
No, I don't want that either. You and I are on the same page on that one.
Good.
That would not be something I want either. But you have to come back on Thursdays and listen to Business Shenanigans, because Kerry is a delight. So, Kerry, where can they find you? Where can people who want to find out more about you find you?
Kerry Gorgone everywhere. Kerry Gorgone, like Kerry G or Gone, on Twitter and on pretty much every social network. And then kerrygorgone.com, which is my sadly neglected blog. I write for Mark Schaefer's Businesses Grow blog every month. I'm a columnist for him.
Oh, wow.
And he's awesome. I love him so much. And I do the Marketing Smarts podcast for Marketing Profs every week. So that's at marketingprofs.com/podcast.
Fantastic. And folks, you can see me at keepingithuman.com. There's lots of goodies, although I am a little tad behind on my blog, but you can also catch me on Twitter, and on Instagram.
But only Klotz-Guest on Instagram.
It's true. It's so goopy. Like on Twitter, I'm Kathy Klotz-Guest, no hyphen. And when I tried to get that same namespace, because you want consistency, right? I go to Instagram and they said it was too long. So I'm at Klotz-Guest.
Are you even going to change it now if you have the chance, though? Because I don't think I would. It'd be like annoying to have to change all your...
It is annoying, but it's so stupid because they just said it was too long. And I thought, okay, well, I want consistency across channels, but they did not allow me to have that on Instagram. So thanks a lot, Instagram.
If they change their mind, I wouldn't change it now because there's nothing like more of a pain in the butt than like the fact that your old handle's out there.
I know. I think it's probably a lost cause. Stuck with it. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Whatever. Kerry, you always inspire me. That was fun. And if I miss anybody's comments, I apologize. One of the things at Be Live is it only shows so many comments, and then there's a point where it just stops kind of filtering, and I can't always see everybody's comments. So, Greg, Timothy, Adrian, all you guys, thanks so much for showing up. Corinder, thanks for showing up. Adrian, we got to get that book.
That does look like a good book.
It does look like a good book.
I'll put it on my shelf along with other books that I would like to read and haven't yet.
Yeah, totally. Just Adrian, thank you for reference. It's Lawyers, Liars, and the Art of Storytelling. Sounds like my cup of tea.
That's not tea in that cup. Don't lie to me. Don't believe you.
Did Trump's personal doctor tell you what he prescribed for me? Why do you think I'm happy all the time? I'm kidding.
No comment. Then what's my excuse?
I don't know. Just good genes, good friendship.
From Boston. Cranky all the time.
You're from Boston. Now, are you actually from Boston?
Well, technically speaking, I'm from Cape Cod, which is like the little resort area a couple hours outside of Boston.
Okay.
Where the Kennedys are from, but I was on like the poor side of Cape Cod. Not where the Kennedys are from. But I went to school in Boston.
Yeah. Okay.
But my dad was this like Harvard educated academic type. So he had no accent like at all. So I really tried not to. My mom, meanwhile, was like plucked right out of Somerville, talks like she was in the town with Ben Affleck. She literally does.
Was she wicked smart? Okay.
Wicked smart. Wicked. So like that. And so I had no accent until I moved to the South, and then it started creeping out because I didn't want people moved from everywhere. And I was like, I didn't want people thinking I was from New York or something. Yeah. I was like, the Boston started creeping out. I'm very counterculture.
That's so
I don't know
funny.
What my problem is.
No, I love it. I love it. There's nothing better to me than somebody who's got a colorful accent or just being themselves. I mean, that's the best. That's the best. So Kerry,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And we'll put this up on YouTube, and eventually we'll try to get to it this weekend. But thanks. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And we will see you next week.